What are some of the biggest challenges that you've had to overcome?
In real estate investing? Learning a new market. That was certainly harder than I thought it would be. That first tenant was a wake-up call. Understanding market cycles, because I just thought everything was the same. Access to capital, right, when the market was rolling over, right, getting bigger. Understanding seller financing, the tax code, right? Because again, you got to remember, I'm a W-2 employee. I make more than, at this time, 250 grand. So I can't take losses. So I have this carry forward loss. So, how you can structure those with LLCs and other things, maybe to give you some benefit. Becoming a real estate professional with some help from an accountant. It's just always learning. I think my biggest error was the first 5 years, I tried to be a cowboy. I tried to do it all by myself. And part of that was just laziness and excuses because I was all over the earth. I was in Europe, in Asia, and South America. But in today's world, you got to get in the right rooms. One of the things that I pay really close attention to today is who are the 5 people I spend the most time with. Because if you want to get a 6-pack abs, get around people that are fit. You want to, be a millionaire, get around millionaires. So that's something I didn't audit before. I think that's a big unlock. I do think it's really hard today. I haven't done a deal. I mean, to your point, I haven't done a deal in probably a year, 14 months. But that doesn't mean I'm not trying. I've probably written 25 offers in the last 14 months. You just got to take your shots. It's a numbers game. It is hard. 2021 was my worst. I wrote 100 offers and didn't get anything, right? Because everything was flying off the shelf. Because I would only write for cash flow. And I didn't change markets. A lot of people have changed markets to, the central or whatnot. But it's definitely hard to cash flow today. I do, most of our deals, when we look at it, occur between October 1st and January 31st, the winter months, when a lot of people take their time off. So I'm hoping that unlocks some opportunities or some seller financing. So you just got to keep learning. And I've been 25 years. I'm still learning.
Yeah. What's your advice for people today, buyers looking for a good deal?
Don't rush. I guess the first thing I would tell people is it's possible. I think a lot of people come into this going, it's not possible. It's hard. It's not easy. It's always hard. I would tell them that buying today, or I'm not even say buying, but learning what a good deal is the goal. And I think that's what frustrates a lot of people because again, to our earlier point, real estate investing is a skill. And if you don't spend the time learning the skill, you're gambling. You're just flat out gambling. And I don't believe in that. I believe it takes focus, repetition. I think you should learn a very, very small buy box. Everybody that I've seen do that, they understand, oh, that one's priced differently than everything else. So I think a lot of people get unfocused. A lot of people I talk to today that have a stance that it's not possible today, when I talk to them, like, hey, I've looked at Dallas and I've looked at Memphis, I've looked at Columbus, I've looked at Fort Lauderdale. And I'm like, you're not learning. You're just frustrating yourself. You're going backwards. Just slow down. Get one area, figure out what, you should be able to tell somebody, your best friend, hey, an average deal, 3 or 4 bedrooms, 2 baths, between this and that is a negative 8%, which is bad. But until you can do that, you don't know. And I just think a lot of people rush it, or they just have opinions that it's too hard.
What do you think about the people buying for appreciation?
That's a big pet peeve of mine. I'm not a fan of that. I had a friend of mine back in the day. He's an executive when I was just a low-level guy. He pulled me in his office and said, hey, Michael, I'm buying in Louisiana. This was right after Katrina, when they had some depreciation extras come in. And he's like, hey, look, I can buy 4 homes and, I can afford to write off $250 a month negative, and given all these, tax benefits, and this is going to go to the moon. Lo and behold, it didn't. And he lost all 4 of them. Because again, betting on appreciation is gambling. I think one of the ways to bust out is I think there's 2 ways to bust out of real estate: betting on appreciation or having short-term debt. This is Dave Ramsey's story, right? Dave Ramsey became a millionaire flipping properties. Unfortunately, as I understand the story, Dave Ramsey was using 90-day debt. Using 90-day debt, probably not a good idea, right? The market slowed down, people called the loans, and he went bust. I think people going bust in multifamilies because of, 2-year bridge debt. I think people that blew up in 06 to 10 was ARMs, teaser loans, 30-year fixed rate debt, cash flow day one, or keep your money in a money market account and just keep grinding.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on flipping versus the buy and hold method?
Again, I only can share my experience. So while I was working, while I had a W-2, I had no time. So we just bought and hold. I did retire in 2018. It was a great time to flip. We flipped 56 properties. Basically, what I did is I paid people to go find slumlords, and we would pay cash for their property because I had to scratch the capital, and I would fix them up, stick a tenant, and I would sell them to landlords. I did that, but I stopped doing that in 2021 when prices went crazy. So you can make money in flipping. You need a team. It's a lot harder. I personally think you have to have full-time focus on it. You can't do it part-time. There's so many ways to go wrong. But I couldn't have done flipping without having a 15 years experience and multiple teams I could call on.
Are there any emerging markets right now that you feel there's a lot of potential in?
So again, I don't generally talk about that stuff because I think everybody has to do their markets. But if I had a gun to my head, I would go southeast, probably like Huntsville, something like that. I've done some casual. I have some people point at that I've looked at for them, but it would be somewhere in the southeast. Price points below 200 grand. Population seems to be increasing. There's more PhDs in and around Huntsville because of NASA and this. They seem to have a lot of good stuff going for them.
And what are your thoughts on the anti-landlord movement?
I think it's coming. You had the president at the latest debate talk about rent control. I mean, that's something I believe I heard him say. I was watching. I think there's a lot of folks that are anti-landlord, and I think there are some horrible landlords. I just talked earlier about buying 56 properties from slumlords. I think slumlords should go to jail. I think it's the most disgusting human trait that you could ask somebody to live in an unsafe, disgusting property. I think they should go to jail. That said, most landlords, specifically mom and pop landlords, do a great job, and they care about their properties and they care about their tenants. And I just think negativity sells. I just think that's just where we are. Us versus them. There's a lot of that.
What do you think of rent control?
I think if there's any way you want to blow up a city, establish rent control. I mean, Minneapolis is the latest example. They adopted rent control, I think 3 or 4 years ago, and you had developers pull out instantaneously. They canceled projects that were in the play. I forget who it was. I think it was some economist that says the only thing that can destroy a city more than rent control is a bombing. I mean, rent control is a horrible idea. I mean, I understand why it feels good. It feels good to the tenants that get it. But trust me, if you fast forward 3, 4, 5 years, you will not have any new development. You will have more and more people bleeding properties, and it will not end well.
Yeah. Jack saw it when I was in the duplex. My block in Los Angeles was rent controlled because there was a mixture of single family homes and duplexes that were kind of like, intermingled across the street. And you see the difference when you go one block south of that, they're all single family and no rent control. The difference between the rent controlled block and the non-rent controlled block was massive. Just in terms of landlord upkeep, how nice the places were, pride of ownership. My block, unfortunately, people would not sink any money into their places at all. And a lot of the reason was because they had tenants that had been there for 30 years, paying significantly under market value. Putting any money in the property would just be lighting it on fire.
Correct.
So from landlords' perspectives, why would I spend money on this thing when it's not going to increase any value? It's not going to do anything for me. By the time they move out, I'm going to have to update it again. There's no point.
Right.
But you see a substantial difference between the two.
No, and again, people can go back and look at history. I mean, you go back to the 70s and look at New York. I mean, there's lots of examples where cities or areas have brought on rent control. The outcome is predictable. The only thing you can ask is how long it takes to get there.
Yeah. What I also didn't like about rent control in Los Angeles was that it wasn't based on income, and that sometimes you just see people who are making a fortune and just happen to be lucked into getting a rental back in the early 1990s where prices were low. Even though they don't need it, if that makes sense.
No, I mean, I think there's a TV show called Friends where you had Monica and I forget Rachel living in an apartment unit in New York because it was her mom's or grandma's or something. Yeah. You have a lot of that, and it's not based on income. It's just based on luck.
It is.
And that's not okay.